A World Test Championship final at Lord's with two stacked pace bowling attacks. It promises to be mouth-watering when Australia and South Africa lock horns to contest the third WTC final. We've got Vernon Philander joining us to set the stakes for what really seems like such a romantic occasion for those who love this act of fast bowling, Vernon.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a massive, obviously a part, in that World Test Championship final. I think being played at Lord's, yes, I mean, overhead conditions might play a factor as well, but, general English conditions will suit, the seamers, especially with a new Duke ball. And I'm looking forward to a fascinated, contest between the two teams. I think South Africa had to work extremely hard over the last 18 months to earn themselves this spot. But I think they'll take a lot of confidence, heading into the World Test Championship, having beaten a lot of teams away from home in order to afford them that opportunity. So they have to work real hard. And I'm a firm believer, the harder you have to work, the more prize you put, obviously, on the contest. So I do feel the boys will take a lot of confidence heading into that contest.
It's also going to be the early part of the season, Vernon. This is quite early for the English Test summer. So a fresh pitch at Lord's, does that only add to the spiciness quotient?
Yeah, I do feel. I think overheads might still be obviously playing a fair factor in in deciding the outcome of their Test match. So I think both sets of seamers will prepare accordingly. I think from a South African perspective, the likes of Marco Jansen, Kagiso Rabada, they've played obviously around the globe. They played in the West Indies where they played with the SG ball, which is a bit similar to the Duke ball. So I do think that they would have taken a lot of confidence in terms of bowling with different balls around the globe. But more importantly, I think being able to pick up wickets. I think that was the massive modus operandi from a South African perspective, was to get batters out. So I do feel that they'll pose a massive threat to the Australian lineup. Look, let's call a spade a spade. At the end of the day, Australia, they will go into that contest being favourites. With the amount of Test match cricket that they have played and also the personnel available to them. But I do feel that the South African team will put up a massive fight against them.
Yeah, when you've got Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins with the reputation, with the wins behind their back, it does make them favourites. But how do you assess the overall strengths and weaknesses of both pace attacks when you compare them?
Yeah, I think for me, I always look at, when you compose these bowling lineups, for me, you want to have a workhorse kind of bowler, guy that can bowl overs, that can bowl the pressure from the one end. So I think from a South African perspective, I think Kagiso Rabada, he speaks for himself. He'll be ultra attacking. He'll look to knock batters over up front. The same with Marco Jansen. But then I do feel that they'll perhaps play the all-rounder in Vean Mulder, which will bowl overs and try and keep it tight from the one end. But I think the fourth seamer is going to be key. And I think they might revolve to a guy called Dane Pedersen, who's played a lot of county cricket for Nottingham. And I think he might be the difference between the two teams, understanding the Duke ball, understanding English conditions, and he'll be able to advise, the rest of his group, as to how to go about their work in English conditions and what will make them effective. So I do feel, as much as you've played, all around the globe, it's those kind of conversations, that will really propel you to get across the line. So I do feel he will play a massive part, in the outcome of that World Test Championship final for South Africa.
When you consider the task at hand for South Africa, you'd imagine they will be looking at that opening towards the top, because Australia will have a second opener, whoever they pick, who will be someone relatively fresh to Test cricket. And in Marnus Labuschagne, they have a number 3 who's not been among the runs for a while. So important for the likes of Rabada and Jansen to make the most of the new ball?
Yeah, I always feel that if you can knock 2 or 3 batters over up front, especially, like you just mentioned, if you have a vulnerable guy walking in at number 3, Steve Smith, I mean, he's rock solid. But yeah, I mean, if you knock a Labuschagne over, or Labuschagne, sorry, he's from South Africa, from my part of the world. If you knock him over and you get into 4-5, with a slightly newish, harder ball, it makes life so much more difficult. So I think, a quick 2 or 3 wickets up front, you might get some jitters in that Australian dressing room. And that's what South Africa will be looking to do. They'll look to take early wickets and really challenge that Australian batting lineup, from a different perspective. So, yeah, I think from a South African perspective, their batters, I think, I mean, you've got class, in the top 5, 6. So again, they'll back themselves, if they can knock Australia over cheaply, obviously.
Yeah. When you do knock those 2 or 3 wickets, then come Australia's biggest threats. We know about them far too well in this part of the world. Stephen Smith, Travis Head, both were centurions at the last WTC final against India. What would be the ideal pace bowling plans for Smith and Head?
Yeah, and again, that's why I make the point. You want to try and get them in earlier. When the ball is still nice and hard. I think then your abaters really come to the fore. I think. Look, I think the way that Smith and Head plays, they play a positive brand of cricket, so they're going to give you opportunity. So you want to make sure that you get them out there, whilst the ball is nice and hard. I think when the ball is slightly softer and a lot less responsive off the surface, that's when they really become dangerous, because I think Head plays, an attacking brand of cricket. He always reminds me of a David Warner, when he walks to the crease, he's always looking to impose himself, on any bowling lineup. But I certainly feel that the key to bowling at those guys is obviously when they walk to the crease, you want to have your best seamers be operating at them. I do feel Marco Jansen, with his extra pace, with his extra bounce, I think he will be a massive asset, and obviously threat to that Trevor's Head, especially because he likes to play square of the wicket. So I do feel with his extra bounce, he can get him into trouble, with the slip cordon. Of course, Stephen Smith, he's always going to try and take those modes of LBW bowled out of play by sifting into the bowler's line. So it's about us, being aware of what these guys are trying to do and how they're trying to set up the innings.
That's where the hope will be for South Africa. Either which way, it promises to be a riveting contest. Thank you so much, Vernon Philander, for setting it up for us.